Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa alihi at-tayyibin wa tahirin wa ashabihi al-muntajibin. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me here today. I assure you this is going to be a very boring talk, so please try and stay awake. It's historical analysis of the peace treaty and the background to it, from trying to find a context in which to explain this better, to try and see what happened at that point. Now, as people who want to see things for what they are, we need to step away from our persuasion, and we need to let go of our emotions. Try and see what all of these things mean, what went on in history from the historical context. Whatever happened between the Muslims, between Bani Umayyah and Bani Hashim, between the Khulafa Rashideen or the Khalifas and the Imam, was in history. Today, we are trying to look at all of that to try and appreciate their circumstances and whatever happened to them. And from that to learn. Our ultimate aim, and I'm not going to preach here, but present a paper, but being a Maulana, nonetheless, that preacher comes out and emerges from time to time, so I can't help it, right? And you can smile at a time when you find any of my talk entertaining, so please, don't hesitate. So today our aim is to try and understand things for what they are and be godly souls. Try and arrive at goodness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for us. Just this note before we start, that when me and you are put to rest and we go and meet with God, the greatest thing will be a regret. That, oh Lord, I involved myself in everything, but I did not find the time to find you. You, the one who really mattered. If I venerated the Prophet Muhammad so much, then he became Prophet Muhammad through a mere ray of your beauty. You, in your entirety, awaited my reception, and I have failed myself. So our job is not to be Shia or Sunni or Muslims or Christians. Our job is to be true seekers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to fall in love with that untarnished beauty, and to follow the example of Muhammad Rasulullah, and to follow the example of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Those lofty examples. In what? In their godliness, in the way in which they approached Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I always say this, and I'll say this as we go into this little analysis of ours. That if Allah says, وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, for Allah is whatever is in the heavens and in the earth. يَغْفِرُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيُعَذِّبُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He forgives whoever He wants and He punishes whoever He wants. Of course, Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيْسَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. Allah shall not oppress anyone. That is Allah's pledge to us. But on the other hand, Allah explains that He has the exclusive right to do whatever He wants. He can ask, nobody can ask Him. But of course, He forgoes His right. And He says, I will do ihsan upon you, and I will not oppress you. But here I want to make a note, that if Allah were to forgive an enemy of ours, then we would have a problem with God. But if Allah were to forgive the killer of Imam Hussain would not have a problem with it. Can you see that? This is how godly Imam Hussain has become. If Allah were to choose to forgive the enemy of Imam Hussain or the enemy of the Prophet, they would not have a problem. They are that surrendered to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though Allah will not do so, yet if He were to do so, they would not have a problem. This is how fluid their souls are and how unrestricted they are. Our task through learning is to become as fluid, as godly, as receptive to the beauty of God. Our destiny is nothing other than God Himself. Christians are Christians, their God is not a Christian. Muslims are Muslims, their God is not a Muslim. Who does God surrender to? We all surrender to Him. Religions are paths to God. God is the ultimate and He is the goal. So here I ask us to be people who, for the sake of history, are able to hear history without involving their emotions, and to park them to one side and try and understand what happened, so we have a better understanding of what went on in history, and we can be better people. Now, the treaty of Imam Hassan, or the peace treaty that Imam Hassan agreed to with Muawiya, and in which Muawiya said, you can stipulate whatever conditions you want, is not an occurrence of the war or the battle between Imam Hassan and Muawiya. It has a very long history. The Bani Umayyah and the Bani Hashim were bitter opponents. They come from the same tree, as do we all. But they were clashing with each other, especially during the time of the prophetic mission. When the Prophet was preaching Islam in Makkah, the bitterest enemies were the Bani Umayyah, Abu Sufyan, and their relatives. The Bani Umayyah obviously were defeated at the conquest of Makkah. Abu Sufyan accepted Islam at the conquest of Makkah. And the Prophet said, whoever goes to the house of Abu Sufyan will be in safety, and it is as if you have accepted Islam. After 30 years of Hijrah, Bani Umayyah regain power and control. And then they exact revenge from the Bani Hashim. So the story goes before Islam, continues during Islam. At the conquest of Makkah, the Bani Umayyah are silenced, and within 30 years, they regain authority over the Muslim Ummah, and then they do whatever they want to do. Now, you always hear this khutbah of Lady Zainab Salamullah Alayha when she is in the court of Yazid. He, in that sermon, is poking at the face of Imam Hussain, and he says, if only my forefathers were alive, they would say, well done, O Yazid. You have now settled the loss of Badr by killing Hussain and his family. At Badr, Imam Ali and Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, had killed the father, brother, son, and cousin of Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan. He was her third husband, Abu Sufyan, and to whom she gave Yazid and Muawiya. Yazid, the older brother of Muawiya. Now, what were the major historical events that lead to the rise of Bani Umayyah and the truce between Muawiya and Imam al-Hassan? The first is the incident of the pen and paper. The companions and Bani Hashim are gathered in the company of the Prophet. The Prophet is on his deathbed. The Prophet said, bring me pen and paper. I shall dictate something for you, after which you will be led to the right course and you will not be misled. According to Bukhari, Khalifa Umar, who later on became Khalifa Umar, said, Hasbuna Kitab Allah. The book of Allah is sufficient for us. In another place in Sahih Bukhari, it is said that Khalifa Umar said, he is speaking under the influence of his sickness, and hence he is not with it totally. Thereafter, there was a conflict within the people who are there. And a lot of historians have a lot of different takes. Some said, give him the pen and paper, and some said, no, the book of God is sufficient for us. We don't know if Khalifa Umar said, do not give him the pen and paper, but he definitely did say, the book of God is sufficient for us. In any case, the Prophet said, it does not befit you to fight in the presence of a prophet, leave me. Ibn Abbas, after the battles, was crying and weeping on a Thursday. He said this was the day on which the Prophet would have dictated his will, and none of these battles would have broken out had he been allowed to. Now, if we look at this incident, a lot of the people say that this is the beginning of the calamity that we find later on in Islam. Not in Karbala, but well before Karbala. Now, before we go there, we want to see, well, what was it that the Prophet wanted to right in any case. In Sahih Hadith of Muslim, the Prophet says, I leave with you two heavy things, the Book of Allah and my progeny. You will never be misguided if you are with these two. The verse of Mubahilah says, say to them, let us bring, to the Christians who were debating the Prophet, let us bring our children, our women and our souls. Historically, Sunni, Shia sources accept, of course, I've taken this predominantly from Sunni sources, yes? Our brothers Sunnis, and I thought that would be reliable. So the sources say that in the place of women it was Fatima Salamullah alayha, in the place of children it was Hasan and Hussain, in the place of the soul it was Imam Ali. Then again we have this historical account of the hadith of the Kisa, the report of the cloak, in which Lady Aisha says that the Prophet was under this blanket with Ali, Fatima, Hasan and Hussain. And Aisha said the Prophet did not allow anybody else to enter. So whatever the Prophet wanted to write was to do with whoever will be leading them. Now here we have this problem that the Sunni school of thought says he did not appoint anybody and it was up to election. And the Shia school of thought says he appointed somebody and there was no election. So we have this particular thing. So even if the Prophet had written it, even some of the Shias also say that he would not have appointed Imam Ali, he would have merely recommended Imam Ali. Some of the Shia schools of thought say that as well. So there is concurrence there. We will find that concurrence occurring from within the Shias and the Sunnis. So whatever he wanted to write would have been either, if the Prophet said, bring me pen and paper, after which you will never be misled, then obviously he was either appointing or making a recommendation. But we are going to see what happens subsequent to that. Now the Prophet dies. The next major event is Saqifa. Now you've all heard about this. It was an outhouse on the outskirts of Medina. Now Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar did not create Saqifa. Saqifa was happening. These two people understood Saqifa is taking place and hence they went to Saqifa. Now you might think, why did the Ansar gather at Saqifa at that point? When we look at history, Ansar, the people of Medina, were faithful devotees of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So why did they have Saqifa? In the battle of the Camel and in the battle of Siffin, they sided with Ali ibn Abi Talib against Lady Aisha, Talha and Zubair, and against Muawiya and Amr ibn As, respectively. So why did the Ansar gather at Saqifa at that point? The Ansar knew that the Muhajirin and the Quraysh were of the opinion that prophethood and caliphate cannot be in the same household. So the Ansar knew that the Muhajirun and the Quraysh will appoint their own head. So that is why they gathered at Saqifa to appoint their own leader. Because the Quraysh was saying that Ali is way too young to assume the position of Khilafah of the Ummah, and he has many enemies because he killed so many of the Quraysh during the battles that the Meccans fought against the Muslims. Now in that meeting, the Ansar did say, when they heard three people attended that meeting, Khalifa Abu Bakr, Khalifa Umar, and Abdullah bin Jarrah, from what I remember, the Ansar did say that if Muhajirun are to be Khulafa, then Ali is the most suited, because he was the favorite one of the Prophet. Now Ali was busy attending to the funeral rites of the Prophet. Now from the Ansar, the most favored person was Sa'ad bin Ubadah. Now Sa'ad bin Ubadah gave a very eloquent speech. After that, Khalifa Umar stood to give a speech and Khalifa Abu Bakr said to him, calm down. Then Khalifa Umar gave a speech which was truly eloquent. It was a very, very eloquent speech that he gave, saying why the Muhajirun ought to be the Khulafa. I'm not going to go through the analysis of that particular part, but in any case, Sa'ad bin Ubadah would have become the Khalifa of the people had it not been for dissent from Bashir bin Sa'ad and his group. And at that point, there was a lot of commotion and people from outskirts of Medina had come and surrounded Bani Saqifa with their swords unsheathed. And there was a very big feud in there. And in the confusion, the bay'ah by Khalifa Umar was paid to Khalifa Abu Bakr. And that is it. The descent was taking place. There was a lot of fighting there, and they paid allegiance to Khalifa Abu Bakr. Now, this is not what I want to say, but here what we see is that we might find a possible distinction when we read this very carefully between Khilafah and Imama. That Imama is a spiritual leadership of a pious community through the appointment of the Prophet. Whereas Khilafah is a state of temporal leadership which is chosen by the people. I want us to bear this in mind when we come to Imam Hassan. So a lot of people make this distinction that Ali Salamullah alayhi was the Imam undeniably and was the first Khalifa, and that Khilafah right was taken away from him. Others make a distinction between the two and they say hence Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayhi later on when the Bani Abbas were giving him the Khilafah, he said we do not wish to have the temporal leadership of the people, and Mahdi will come and take that leadership. So he retained the spiritual leadership, and there was a divorce between spiritual and temporal. So we're seeing that distinction from the very beginning, that there is a khilafah upon the Muslim ummah, and there is imama, which is a spiritual continuation of guidance from God through the agency of an imam who is most suitable person to interpret the Quran in the absence of the Prophet. Just bear that in mind because it's very important, this distinction between Imama and Khilafah. Now, in the Khilafah of Abu Bakr, this is the next major event that occurs. When Banu Umayyah are actually brought into the scene. At the conquest of Syria, Khalifa Abu Bakr made Yazid bin Abu Sufyan the general of the army, and it was indeed a very powerful position that he bestowed upon the son of Abu Sufyan, and Abu Sufyan was still alive, straight after the demise of the Prophet. And they obviously they must have had their own dynamics and whatever, that the person has been forgiven by Islam or whatever, but they knew the state of rivalry and opposition between the Prophet and Bani Umayyah. So this was the first thing that happens to bring Bani Umayyah to the fore. Maybe it was a very little gesture at that point, even though being head of the general of an army that conquers Syria is something huge, but in the grand scheme of things might have been something very little. Then comes the next major event at the Khilafah of Khalifa Umar and the rise of Bani Umayyah even further. Khalifa Umar gives the governorship of Syria to Yazid bin Abi Sufyan. And when Yazid in a plague died, he gave the governorship of Syria to Muawiya, the younger brother of Yazid bin Abi Sufyan. So there's a whole of this report that when Khalifa Umar goes to Abu Sufyan to obviously offer him condolences and sympathy, he said, well, who will be the next governor? And he said, Muawiya, of course. So Abu Sufyan was happy at that. Now, at that point, Abu Ubaid ibn Jarrah, the person who went to Saqifa with Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar, was the governor of Damascus. When he died, Khalifa Umar gave the governorship of Damascus in addition to the governorship of Syria to Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. Historically, we find that Khalifa Umar was very much aware of the happenings within the Muslim lands and was keeping things under a lot of control. There might be criticism of his harshness, but at least he adhered to the dictates of piety in the way in which he dressed and lived and ate. But Muawiyah lived lavishly. And when Khalifa Umar went to Syria and Muawiyah met him, he said to Muawiyah, what is all of this? Muawiyah said, in order to impress the non-Muslims and the Romans who are next door to us, in order to instill fear within them. And Khalifa Umar said, you have way with words. He said, if you want, I will remove all of this and I will be in line with austerity the way you are. So Khalifa Umar said to him, you just have a way of words and the way of convincing me. So historians often say that Khalifa Umar, Muawiyah had a way with him, in the way he would explain and the way he would convince. At the point of the death of Khalifa Umar, as he was stabbed, and he knew that he only had a few more days left, quite a few companions sent message to Khalifa Umar that appoint your successor. He said, if I were to appoint my successor, indeed it would be in line with what Khalifa Abu Bakr did. And that would be good. If I did not appoint the next leader, it would be in line with what the messenger did. So you can see here that there is some type of a distinction between Imama and Khilafah in the minds of the people at least. So the people to whom he said this, because Lady Aisha had also sent him a message, do not die without stipulating a head for the flock of sheep that you leave behind, because it's a sheep that the Prophet left behind. He said, well, if I do that, then it would be in line with the Khilafah of Abu Bakr, with the sort of the Sunnah of conduct of Abu Bakr. And if I didn't, it would be in accordance with the conduct of the Prophet, and the conduct of the Prophet would be better. He said, instead, what I do is, I will summon 6 people, and I will make a committee. And these 6 people were a committee which is known as the Electoral Committee. So Khalifa Umar appointed these 6 people who were Imam Ali, Khalifa Uthman, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Talha Zubair, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqas. And then he said to Abdul Rahman ibn Auf that you will deliberate for 3 days. And you have to come out with a Khalifa in 3 days. If there is dissent, then if there is equal voting on 2 sides, then Abdul Rahman ibn Auf will have the casting vote. Now Abdul Rahman was related to Khalifa Uthman, but he also at the same time did not want to offend Imam Ali. So I'll tell you what happened at that point. Now Khalifa Umar summoned these 6 men. And then he said to Sa'ad that he is arrogant and cannot possibly rule the Muslim community. He said to Talha that Talha is rude and greedy, and hence he was unworthy. He said about Abu Rahman, he said he is heavily inclined to luxury, and in no time would his wives be ruling the Khilafah. Yeah, what's wrong with women ruling anyway? But at that point it was wrong, yes? But the women did not show any expression, so never mind. He said Zubair is a believer when he is calm, and he's a disbeliever when he is angry. He loses sense of righteousness when he becomes angry. He said Ali is worthy of being a ruler in every aspect, but he is too ambitious to put things right. He just had this yearning to put things right. And we see that this is often made a criticism against Imam Ali when he became a Khalifa, that he should have been more diplomatic and more political, so on and so forth. Anyway, this was what was said about Imam Ali. He said Osman would give authority to his clan Banu Umayyah and his family, and they would devour the Muslim wealth in the Muslim Ummah. Now these were the remarks of Khalifa Umar. Now, 3rd day was about to come. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf then consulted Amr ibn As. He is the mind. He is the mind. Yes? People often say that Muawiyah was the most successful politician. I will say yes, he probably was. Amongst the greatest successful politicians, not godly human beings, yes? But politicians in the sense of devious people who are able to retrieve power at all costs and maneuver. Definitely the guy was one of the greatest politicians we've ever seen in that sense, not the good sense, not the godly sense. But the real mind was Amr ibn As. He was the brain. Anyway, he consulted Amr ibn As, and Amr ibn As said, look, say to Ali, this is the Khilafah, we are going to give it to you. Provided you give the undertaking that you will rule in accordance with the Book of God, the conduct of the Messenger, and the seerah of the first 2 Khulafa, Shaykhin. He knew Imam Ali was a man of principle. And whatever Imam Ali commits to, he will do. So Imam Ali responded, he said, I will rule in accordance with the book of God, in accordance with the conduct of the messenger, and I will have my own discretion as a Khalifa. He said, in that case, he then left his hand and he said to Uthman, you are the next candidate. Uthman said, I will rule in accordance with the book, the messenger, and the seerah of the Shaykhain, and Uthman was given the Khilafah. After that, Muawiya later on was asked. No, Muawiya was in the company of a Sahabi. Muawiya said, do you know what caused the civil war and civil strife within Islam? So the man said, the killing of Uthman. He said, no. The Khilafah of Ali. He said, no. He said, then what? He said, the electoral committee. He said, Khalifa Umar chose the sort of people who would always bear animosity against each other, and it would lead to endless battles. This was the observation that Muawiyah made. The next major event comes at the time of Khalifa Uthman and the true rise of Bani Umayyah. And in here you will see the killer of Khalifa Uthman as well. The main people of Bani Umayyah who are with Uthman were all related to Uthman. They were all Khalifa Uthman, they were all his relation. For example, his son-in-law Marwan, the advisor of Uthman and like a prime minister of Khalifa Uthman. So Marwan is a son of Hakam. And Hakam was the uncle of Uthman. And Marwan and Hakam were both banished from Medina in the time of the Prophet. When the Prophet died, Khalifa Uthman went to Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar in their times, and they both refused to bring Marwan and Hakam back into Medina. Of course, when Uthman became the Khalifa, he brought them back. So Marwan was the son-in-law and the advisor of Uthman, upon whom he bestowed lavishly. Another was Harith, again the son of Hakam and the younger brother of Marwan, upon whom Khalifa Uthman bestowed. Then we have Walid bin Aqaba, the half-brother of Khalifa Uthman. Aqaba was executed, was captivated and executed by the command of the Prophet at the Battle of Badr. Walid became a Sahabi of the Prophet after the conquest of Makkah and would write the Wahi of the Prophet. But he would distort the Wahi to the extent that the Prophet, Walid would be the emissary of the Prophet. And the Prophet sent him to collect taxes. Walid came back and he said that they are refusing to pay taxes. Then that community came and paid taxes to the Prophet, and the verse was revealed that when an untrustworthy person comes to you, do not take their word as face value. Examine what they are saying, for indeed it can be a cause of a lot of strife. So that is of Walid. We will come later on to see what happens with Walid. Then is Sa'ad bin As. This person, As, was killed at Badr as the enemy of God. Khalifa Uthman adopted Sa'id and made him the head of Kufa after removing Walid. We will come to that afterwards. Then there was Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarrah, who was a foster brother of Khalifa Uthman. Sa'ad bin Abi Sarrah was known as a hypocrite of Medina. Abdullah ibn Sa'ad, who was his son, later on began to write the Wahi for the Prophet. But in many instances, he would distort the recording of the Wahi to the extent that the Prophet banished him and then ordered that then he became an apostate, and the Prophet ordered his execution. Now, at the conquest of Makkah, Uthman came with this person and he said to the Prophet, pardon him. The Prophet remained silent on 3 occasions, and then the Prophet finally pardoned him. And then the Prophet said, why didn't you execute him when you saw me being silent? Umar said, well, why did you not gesture to us from the corner of your eye? And the Prophet replied, it does not befit a Prophet to gesture deceitfully. Who are the governors in the time of Khalifa Uthman? Kufa, the governor was Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas by the instruction of Khalifa Umar. He was removed and Walid was made the governor. When Walid was convicted on charges of being drunkard all the time, Sa'ad bin As, that we talked of above, was made the governor of Kufa by Uthman, so his half foster brother. Basra, Abu Musa Ashari was removed, and in his place, Uthman placed his cousin Abdul Rahman bin Amir as the governor. These are all Bani Umayyah and of course the same family. In Syria, Muawiya, the son of Abu Sufyan, remained and continued as the governor. In Egypt, Amr ibn As was removed, and his foster brother, Khalifa Uthman's foster brother Abdullah ibn Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh, was appointed. In addition to this, when the grand companions of the Prophet spoke against the Bani Umayyah and against Khalifa Uthman, they were beaten up or banished. So Abu Zar al-Ghafari, when he spoke against the excesses of Muawiya wrote to Uthman and he said, have him back to Medina. He was taken back to Medina, and then of course he was roughened up and then banished to Rabza. Ammar bin Yasir was beaten up to the extent that his ribs had broken. And again, he was going to banish him, and Imam Ali prevented him from being banished. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, the great reciter of the Quran, was the treasurer of Kufa, but Walid took money and did not return it to him. He left his post, came to Medina, and became a bitter critique of Uthman. He too was beaten up and prevented from leaving Medina. Death of Khalifa Uthman. Now they say that this nepotism and corruption had reached to an extent that the Egyptians and people of Basra would be very, very discontent. So they came to Medina to have this open discussion with Khalifa Uthman and to ask him to put things straight. Now it's a very lengthy issue in which many occasions they came and the house of Uthman was under siege, and Imam Ali would come and say, look, open your heart and apologize to these people and say to them that you will put things right. They wanted the removal of his governor from Egypt, so he removed him and sent Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, the son of Khalifa Abu Bakr and the adopted son of Imam Ali, to the governorship of Egypt. And when Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was halfway there, somebody was coming towards them. They arrested him and they found a note from Khalifa Uthman that stated that as soon as you find Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, put him to death, and the person that I've appointed will continue. The thing is, this enraged the Egyptians who had come to Medina. Uthman had not written that letter. Marwan had written it. Marwan eventually caused the death of Uthman by advising Uthman. Naila, the wife of Uthman, would always tell him, don't listen to this son-in-law of yours. He will get us all killed. In any case, Imam Ali then came to Uthman and said, look, I do this for you and then you reverse it. And people are seeing you as a liar and I am not going to get involved anymore. In any case, Uthman wrote to Muawiya in Syria and he said, look, I'm under threat. Send the armies to assist me. And Uthman would say to the Egyptians and the people of Basra, soon you will be removed from here. Muawiya did not respond. In Nahj al-Balagha we find communications of Imam Ali with Muawiya in which Imam Ali says to Muawiya that you rise against me with the pretext of seeking revenge for the killing of Uthman and bringing his killers to justice, yet it was you who had Uthman killed. Many historians have commented that this is something that now we are seeing, that Muawiya actually played it very cleverly. He said, if he gets killed, I am in a strong position here. In any case, Uthman was killed by the Egyptians. His wife, her fingers were cut. Yes? Now Imam Ali became the Khalifa. And the story continues. Now for the first time, the people choose a Khalifa. And within the Sunni traditions, there is a hadith in which the Prophet says to Ali that you will not go out to the people. You are like the Kaaba, the people will turn to you. So this is the first time that the people converge upon Imam Ali. And we find this so clearly depicted in one of his khutbahs, and I'm sure you've all read it in Najib al-Agha, the end of Shakshakiyya, the way he explains this whole scenario. So he's chosen as a Khalifa, and Talha and Zubair both pay allegiance to him. But the thing is that Talha and Zubair break their allegiance to Imam Ali. Now what happens there is, we need to understand that what caused the death of Uthman. There are three things that caused the death of Uthman. One is Marwan's excess. Two is Amr ibn As, who began the conspiracies against Uthman. And three is Lady Aisha. Lady Aisha was a favored wife of the Prophet by Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar. Uthman removed her from the list of the favorites. And he made her stipend the same as any other wife. That hurt her. When Ammar ibn Yasir was beaten up, she actually found that very unacceptable. And at one point, she takes hold of the turban of the Prophet or the slipper of the Prophet, and she says very angrily, "Uqtul na'thalan faqad kafar." Kill the long-bearded Jew, he has committed an act of kufr. And this is what we read. So she's very angry at him. Amr ibn As, that great mind, that demonic mind, whatever we want to call it, I don't want to pass any judgments. In that way, I admire the mind of the devil himself, right? And please don't take clips and post them on YouTube. I have enough of them this week. No more clips for this week. Just peace for now. Yeah? After a month or two, please start again, whoever it is. To the camera. In any case, him spinning these conspiracy theories against Uthman. So Amr ibn As, Marwan, and Lady Aisha. These are the three people at the core of the killing, inciting people to kill Uthman. Now Uthman has been killed. So Lady Aisha is en route to Mecca, or coming back from Ziyarah, coming back from Umrah to Medina, I'm not sure. And she said, what happened? Then they said, Uthman has been killed. She said, Alhamdulillah, the earth has been cleaned off him. Who is the leader? Ali. Ali allowed Uthman to be killed. How dare he? And we will fight him to take revenge of the blood of Uthman. They said, what you just said this a little while ago. She said, whatever I say last stands. So in any case, Lady Aisha, obviously under the pretext of seeking revenge for the blood of Khalifa Uthman, moved towards Basra. Now you know the story in full, and I don't want to talk about it, that she was very hesitant, and Abdullah bin Zubair, who was desirous of Khilafah, convinced her against her better understanding, against her intuitive understanding. In any case, she did regret afterwards that she has had Muslims killed for no reason, and she was misled by Abdullah bin Zubair. What happens there is the pretext is seeking revenge for the death of Uthman, and many people got killed. But Talha, Zubair, Lady Aisha were not coordinated. They were not the minds that were required to overpower somebody like Imam Ali. What happens after this is that Muawiya enlists Amr ibn As, and he said, look, I am desirous of this Khilafah. Amr ibn As says, give me Egypt first. He said, I'll give you Egypt, you get me the Khilafah. Amr ibn As then spins the whole thing. And he says, in that case now, we are seeking revenge from the killers of Uthman. Ali allowed them to escape. Ali did not kill them, but Ali allowed them to escape. So the shirt of Khalifa Uthman and the cut finger of Naila were stuck in the mosque of Damascus. And continuously, the pulpits were crying out that Uthman was killed. And Ali allowed the killing or the escape of his killers. The people were in a state of frenzy, they were killing and beating their heads. People were aroused. So then there is a lot of exchange of letters between Muawiyah and between Imam Ali until the two forces meet at the Battle of Siffin. Now you all know what happens at the Battle of Siffin, but the end thing is when Ammar bin Yasir was killed, the people said, we are on the wrong, because the Prophet had said, Ammar, the wrongful people will put you to death. Amr ibn As spinned it and he said, Ali brought him to the battle, so Ali is his killer. This is how he twisted the whole thing. So somebody replied that in that case the Prophet has killed Hamza for taking him to Uhud. In any case, that went through. Now you do know that when Imam Ali took hold of the water, Muawiya said to Umar ibn As, we will starve to death now, we will thirst to death. He said, no, Ali will never refuse you from drinking water, he's a principled man. Umar ibn As was that brilliant, he knew his opponent. Aisha, Talha and Zubair could not understand the logic of Imam Ali. Umar ibn As knew it. He knew the logic of Imam Ali, he knew the logic of the Kharijites, he knew the naivety of the people. So when Malik Ashtar, through the final onslaught, arrived near the tent of Umar ibn As and Muawiya said, now either death or we flee. Umar ibn As said, no, raise the Quran and say, let the Quran arbitrate and we've got the day. Anyway, as we said, he was a shrewd person. He saved Muawiya's life at that point. Abu Musa Ashari, through obviously whatever he did, put the ring on his finger and said, I declare Muawiya as the Khalifa. And then the Kharijites went against Imam Ali, who were in the force of Imam Ali. They said, this man, by accepting the truce, has gone against the commandment of God, and he, because he has committed a major sin, has become a polytheist or a kafir. And he needs to repent now. Now, these were the events that led to the rise of Muawiyah. Bani Umayyah are everywhere. Imam Ali has removed many of them and incurred their animosity and their hatred. Muawiyah is at the peak of his power. He makes a truce with the Romans by offering an annual payment to the emperor so that there is no battle from that side against him, so that he can conduct a battle against Imam Ali, which he did. Now he's in a very strong position. Now Imam Ali at the same time is now mobilizing his forces to go back to battle with Muawiyah. The Kharijis, they said there are three people at the core of this peace that was brokered at Siffin. Muawiyah, Amr ibn As and Ali by accepting it has become a kafir or a polytheist or whatever. And Imam Ali was a very principled person. They said, no, break it and let's fight. Imam Ali said, no, you asked for this arbitration and you have to live by it now. He was a very principled person. So obviously, Muawiyah did not go. Muawiyah was struck, but he lived. Imam Ali was assassinated. Amr ibn As did not go for the morning prayers and he lived. Now after Imam Ali was killed, Imam Hasan, after the burial of Imam Ali, he stood in front of the people and he gave a sermon. And the people said, we do not find anybody better than you. You will be our Khalifa. Now, according to the Sunni, this was nothing to do with Imamah. This was to do with Khilafah. And the people did the bay'ah of Imam Hassan and they made him into a legitimate Khalifa. And therefore, when it comes to the Khulafa Rashidin, the Sunnis say they were Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali ibn Abi Talib and Hasan ibn Ali. There were 5 Khulafa Rashidin, not 4. And the evidence is produced here that there is a famous hadith in which the Prophet said that for 30 years the Khilafah will run on my model. And after that it will be changed into a monarchy or dynasty. Now if you look at this very carefully, 11 Hijrah, the Prophet dies. 41 Hijrah, the truce occurs with Imam Hassan and Muawiyah. So that was 30 years. Ibn Taymiyyah remarks that Imam Hassan was amongst the Khulafa Rashidin that lasted for 30 years. And after that, the Khilafah Rashida finished and Muawiyah began his reign. So now we find these sort of justifications for Muawiyah that he was a Katib of Wahi, that he wrote the Wahi. What happened was that at the conquest of Makkah, Abu Sufyan went to the Prophet and he said that people hate us. Give us some position that we become acceptable in the eyes of the people. So the Prophet allowed Muawiyah to be a scribe. Muawiyah did not write any Wahi, and this is proven by books because he was very short time with the Prophet. He might have written a letter or two for the Prophet, and that was only in order to give them dignity. That was about it. So Muawiyah is not Katib of Wahi. We must make that clear from Sunni Shia sources. In any case, when Imam Hassan died, there was a Sahabi of the Prophet there in front of Muawiyah. And Muawiyah's minister said, indeed, the burning coal of hell has stopped burning. And that man said, how dare you say this? I have seen the Prophet with Hassan on his lap. And he said, through this child of mine, Allah will bring truce between two warring parties of the Muslims. He was the greatest amongst all that were alive. And he was the true one that was elected. In any case, when Imam Hassan became the Khalifa, Muawiyah, after sent his insurgents and spies to cause obviously havoc and confusion within the Madinian community, Imam Hassan had some of them executed. And then he wrote to Muawiyah, he said, indeed, if you come into Iraq, I will face you. So Muawiyah came into Iraq. Imam Hassan gathered his forces. And to Muawiyah, the news was that 40,000 men are coming. So Muawiyah again consulted Amr ibn As. He said, he's bringing 40,000 men. Amr ibn As said, resort to truce with him, peace treaty, but put him in a weak position, weaken him. Bribe his generals, cause dissent. He did all of this and it worked. So Imam Hassan at a particular point en route to meeting with Muawiyah, he came out and he gave a sermon. He said, oh people, unity is better than disunity. There were a lot of Kharijites in the forces of Imam Hassan who wanted to seek revenge from Muawiyah at any cost. And there were many other people who are known Arabs who just wanted the share of the plunder. When Imam Hassan said that, they said, look, this man is going to hand over the reins of authority to Muawiyah, like his father before him, and he's become an apostate. So they attacked Imam Hassan, and as we heard from Abbas just a little while ago. Imam Hassan was struck on his thigh, so on and so forth. Then Muawiyah wrote to Imam Hassan and said, look, these are the letters from your generals and the chiefs in your party that they are ready to defect and that they are ready to kill you and assassinate you in secrecy. I offer you truce instead. You name all the conditions that you want. Imam Hassan, under those circumstances, accepted the truce. So we are seeing that Bani Umayyah have come to great state of power. The Muslims' mindset has been moved away from that God-centric, spiritual outlook that the Prophet had created. In the years that went before the Prophet and the death of, that went after the demise of the Prophet and the death of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Muslim community was open to bribery, dissent, warfare, because they had seen civil wars, 3 of them at least in the time of Imam Ali Salamullah alayhi. So everything was a chaos. Imam Hassan, seeing this situation, he thought that it's futile to conduct this battle with Muawiyah with such weakened forces due to such slander and accusations and bribery and so on and so forth. So Imam Hassan accepted the truce. Now, the terms of the treaty were, as we've just heard, no cursing of Imam Ali from the pulpits and in the qunut of the prayers. After the death of Uthman, when Muawiyah said that he would seek revenge on the killers of the Khalifa Uthman, when the truce happened, Uthman still continued the swearing and the cursing when the truce between Imam Ali and Uthman happened, Imam Ali and Muawiyah happened, he still continued the cursing of Imam Ali, full force. So the people thought Imam Ali was a drunkard, a womanizer, an evildoer, and a very corrupt person. So he said the first thing is you will stop cursing Imam Ali from the pulpits and from the qunut. The second thing is safety for the companions of Imam Ali, and you will not chastise them. And we heard he killed Hajar al-Nadi and he killed many, many more. And no appointment of the successor after him. And of course, that the people of Imam Ali will receive their fair share of Baytul Mal. Muawiyah did not honor any of these. Muawiyah agreed to that. When he came into Kufa, he said, people, I did not wage this battle against Hasan ibn Ali in order to make you pray or fast or give zakat. You are doing all of that anyway. The terms of the treaty are beneath my feet. Finish. Imam Hussain was obviously aroused, and Imam Hassan said to him, it's just calm down, we will honor whatever we have pledged. Now, what he did was that in 20 years of reign, the first 10 years saw the death of Imam Hassan being poisoned by his wife through payment from Muawiyah and offer that Juhda will be married off to Yazid and that she would become the princess and then the queen. He made the payment. Of course, he did not let Yazid marry her after killing Imam Hassan and poisoning. Muawiyah resorted to terrorist tactics to silence his opponents. So either kill them like Hajr ibn Adi or poison them silently, very cleverly. He was a very, very shrewd, clever person. He knew what to do. And with an advisor like Umar ibn As next to him, he couldn't fail, basically. So he broke all the terms of the treaties. No money was given to the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The companions were killed. Imam Ali was sworn at. The final clause, 4 years prior to his death, he went seeking pledges of allegiance from the great Muslim lands and their governors and their people and the Sahaba for Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Those who refused were poisoned or bribed. This is what was happening. Now, before we go on to Imam Hussain, what he was doing at that point, we go to Yazid. Some people present this hadith that Yazid goes to paradise. I think Zakir Naik also spoke about this at some point, that the Prophet had said those who conquer Constantinople will go into paradise. Now, when we look at the history properly, and people like Tahir al-Qadiri and so on and so forth, they all make it very clear that the Prophet said the first one that goes into the Roman lands and conquers a town, he did not mention any name of the town, will have security of paradise. Yazid went in the 8th expedition. The Prophet talked about the first expedition. So this hadith is nothing to do with Yazid. Yes? Because normally people say Yazid went and conquered. He was amongst the army that conquered. So he has been promised paradise. No, he was in the 8th attack. The Prophet spoke about the first one, in which they went, entered into the Roman lands and conquered their city. Imam Hussain, during the life of Muawiyah, wrote to him several letters, and he said, I can't sit still, but my brother has committed, and I will stand steadfast to this commitment. And now Muawiyah, when he is dying, he says to Yazid that Hussein, if he comes out in battle, then overpower him. Do we have any time?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah? Okay, so I'll just like to read the sermon of Imam Hussain at Mina, 1 year prior to Karbala, which will then give us an understanding of where Imam Hussain was and how the treaty of Imam Hassan with Muawiyah was on the verge of being broken fully, and how Imam Hussain himself was not going to sit still, and a battle was inevitable. If Muawiyah had lived, Imam Hussain would have gone to battle with Muawiyah. It seems that way. Yes? So Imam Hussain says, as Mina, O people, take lesson from the counsel God gave to his friends when he rebuked the rabbis by saying, why do the scholars and the rabbis not forbid their sinful talk and consumption of what is unlawful? Truly what they have done is evil. And God says, cursed by the tongue of David and Jesus, son of Mary, are those among the children of Israel who disbelieved on account of their rebellion and transgression. They did not prevent each other from committing vile and corrupt acts. Surely what they did was abominable. God reproached them because they saw with their own eyes the oppressors committing vile and corrupt acts, but did not stop them, out of love for the favors they received from them, as well as fear of persecution and injury. However, God says, "Fear not man, but fear me." And He says, "The believing men and women are friends and protectors of each other. They enjoin good and forbid the evil. They perform the prayers and pay the alms. They obey God and His messenger. Upon them God shall have mercy. God is Almighty, All-Wise." God mentions the duty of enjoining good and forbidding evil before all other duties, because He knows that if it is performed and is established in the society, all other duties, the easy and the difficult, will also become established. The reason for this is that Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar means summoning people to Islam, as well as resistance against injustice, opposing and struggling against oppressors, and endeavoring to ensure that public wealth and income derived from war are distributed in accordance with the just laws of Islam, and that taxes are collected, levied, and expended in due and proper form. O scholars, who are celebrated and enjoy good reputation on account of your learning, you have achieved a good name in society because of your goodwill. It is on account of God that men venerate you and stand in awe of you, so that even powerful fear you and the weak honor you, and those who are subject and those who are not subject to you, and over whom you hold no authority, grant you favors they deny themselves. When the people do not receive their due, they seek your intercession, and you talk in the street with the majesty of kings and princes. Have you not earned all this respect and prestige because of the people's hopes that you will implement God's laws, even though in most instances you have failed to do so? You have taken lightly your duties as leaders. You have neglected the rights of the oppressed and the lowly, but have assiduously pursued what you regard as your personal rights. You have not spent your money or risked your life for the sake of the one who gave you life, nor have you fought against any group or tribe for the sake of God. Nevertheless, you desire and regard it as your due, that He should grant you paradise, the company of the Prophet, and security from chastisement in the hereafter. You have such high expectations of God, I fear the full weight of His wrath descend upon you, for although it is by His might and glory that you have achieved high rank, you show no respect to those who truly know God, while you yourselves enjoy respect amongst God's creatures on His account. I fear for you due to another thing. You see the covenant enacted with God being violated and trampled underfoot. I think this is in reference to Muawiya. Yet you show no anxiety. When it comes to the covenants enacted with your forefathers, you become greatly disturbed and anxious, if they are only violated in part. But the pledges you have given to the most noble messenger are a matter of complete indifference to you. The blind, the dumb, and chronically ill everywhere lack protection in towns, and no mercy is shown to them. But you neither behave in accordance with your function and rank, nor you support or pay any regard to those who do. You purchase your safety from the oppressive ruling powers with flattery and compromise. All these activities have been forbidden to you by God, and He has moreover commanded you to forbid each other to engage in them, but you pay no attention. The calamity that has befallen you is greater than what has befallen others, for true rank and degree of ulama has been taken away from you. The administration of the country and the issuing of decrees and ordinances should actually be trusted to religious scholars who are guardians of God's ordinances concerning what is permitted and what is forbidden. But your position has been usurped from you for no other reason than that you have abandoned the truth and have disagreed about the nature of the Sunnah despite the existence of clear proofs. Had you the forbearance to endure adversities and hardships for the sake of God, then all proposed regulations would be brought to you for your approval and for you to issue. Authority would lie in your hands, but you have allowed the oppressors to take away your functions and God's affairs, i.e. the government, to fall into their hands, so that they administer them by resorting to ambiguities and make arbitrariness and the satisfaction of lust their consistent practice. What enabled them to gain control of government was your fleeing in panic from the inevitable death, and your love for life, which shall in all certainty depart from you. As a consequence of that mentality, you have delivered the powerless masses into the clutches of the oppressors. While some cringe like slaves under the yoke of oppressors, and others have been reduced to destitution in regard to their livelihood, the rulers run the affairs of the government in accordance with their whims. One of their appointed spokesmen mounts the pulpit in each city. The country is defenseless before them, and their hands grab freely whatever they want of it. The people are their slaves and powerless to defend themselves. One of the governors is a dictator by nature, malevolent. Another represses to recognize either God or the day of resurrection. Is it not strange? How can one think it strange that society is in the clutches of a cunning oppressor whose tax collectors are oppressors and whose governors feel no compassion or mercy towards the believers under rule? It is God who will judge concerning what is disputed amongst us and deliver a decisive verdict concerning all that occurs amongst us. O God, you know that everything we did was not prompted by rivalry for political power, nor for the search of wealth and abundance. Rather, it was done to demonstrate to man the shining principles and values of your religion, to reform the affairs of your land, to protect and secure the indisputable rights of your oppressed servants, and to act in accordance with the duties you have established and the norms and laws and ordinances you have decreed. So, all scholars of religion, you are to help us reach this goal, win back our rights from those powers who have considered it acceptable to wrong you and who have attempted to put out the light kindled by your prophet. God suffices us, upon him do we rely, to him do we return, and to him shall we return. That is the end of my talk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sorry, just a final note. Imam Hussain demonstrates there the state of affairs and how he was ready to engage Muawiya in a battle.
Thank you very much for that talk, Sheikh. So now it's the time is about 8:35. We have preferably finish this at 9. So we have some time for question and answers. If you'd like to, we'll be sending a mic around the audience. If you'd like to send any questions in, or you can use this website and I'll be getting the questions if you want to say it anonymously as well. So please, bismillah. We can go with an online question first then. So somebody asked, good evening, Sheikh. I was wondering if you could clarify as to why Imam Hussain a.s. revolted against the caliphate and not sought another treaty.
The thing here is that Imam Hussain assessed the situation very differently. Now, he said, you can see from this sermon, he's saying that seeking any treaty would not serve in the best interest of Islam or the community or a pious state. He's already saying that their pulpits are filled with preachers who preach against Islam. He said the tax being collected is actually usurpation of money, and the people are being oppressed and the poor people are not being fed. The ordinances of Islam are not enacted. Uneducated, unworthy people are issuing religious verdicts. So here for Imam Hussain to resort to a peace treaty would be a failure in his mind of his role as an Imam who guides and safeguards Islam. Whereas in the time of Al-Hassan, he said that this peace treaty is only there to safeguard the religion and the true principles of religion from becoming demolished altogether. Yes? So Imam Hassan saw that if he were, Imam Hussain was of the mindset that if he goes into any sort of peace treaty, it will undermine religion altogether. That's one thing. The other thing is that Muawiya did not demand a pledge of allegiance from Al-Hassan. He went for a truce in return for Khilafah, right? But Yazid demanded an oath. Now, even though we made a distinction between Khilafah and Imamah, yet the insistence by Abdul Rahman ibn Auf to Imam Ali to follow the seer of the Shaykhain shows that the Khalifa was seen as a divine guide as well within the minds of the Muslim Ummah, and therefore whatever the Khalifa did would constitute the Sunnah of Islam.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Maybe a comment on something you learned? If you don't, please, we have a question from my brother.
So, two questions. One, you mentioned your talk about Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Very briefly, I didn't quite understand about him being offered the Khilafah, and he said, we are not interested or something to that effect. If you could please elaborate on that.
Well, Bani Abbas, once they got the kingdom from Bani Umayyah, they went to the children of Imam Ali, who was Imam Sadiq, and they said, this Khilafah, you can take it. And Imam Sadiq refused it.
Does that say anything about our faith's stance on or separation of imamah from, or the clergy from the management of the state?
This definitely is a discussion that needs to be had. That both of them can be separate and can coexist as well, can be in one person. So we have a variety of models there that are seen in the time of the Prophet and the Imams.
My second question is about Imam Hussain writing a letter to Muawiya in the lifetime of Imam Hassan, you mentioned.
No, after the death of Imam Hassan.
After the death of Imam
Hassan. Yeah, because Imam Hassan died, and then 10 years after Muawiya died.
So, did Imam Hussain indicate quite clearly that he was not happy with the way affairs were being?
According to our Sunni sort of scholars, yes, Imam Hussain was extremely dissatisfied. And he was showing signs that he would come out, possibly in rebellion. But if you look at this sermon a year prior to Karbala, you find it's extremely clear about the outlook of Imam Hussain and the way he was understanding things. Yes?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have another question from online. It says, Salam, in terms of the selection of the four Rashideen we are aware of, however, what are the circumstances of Al-Hassan's initial appointment as Khalifa?
So when Imam Ali has been assassinated and Imam Ali is buried, Imam Hassan is in Darul Khilafah, the capital of the Caliphate, which is Kufa, because Imam Ali moved it from Medina to... And now these are the people who are choosing the next Khalifa because it is the seat of Khilafah. And it is seen that Makkah, Medina and all these people are also in favor of whatever Kufa does. Because you have that region and Iraq, and then you have Syria where Muawiyah is. So Syria is seen on that side, on the other side, and the rest of it is here. So when the people of Kufa, they overwhelmingly said to Imam Hassan, we pledge allegiance to you as our next Khalifa, it was seen as giving Khilafah Rashida to Imam Hassan. On top of that, if that wasn't enough, then the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he says, that is accepted by our Sunni scholars, that he said that Khilafah Rashida according to them, but the model of the prophetic Khilafah will endure for 30 years. And we see that Imam Hassan's Khilafah falls within that time period and it ends at the end of that time period. So this is how we deduce.
So the question about how about the prophetic model you said last?
So according to the Sunni scholars, the Prophet's hadith was that after 30 years, the Khilafah will be changed into monarchy or dynasty and whatnot. So when we calculate the 30 years after Imam Ali, Imam Hassan becomes the legitimate Khalifa Rashida according to the two things, the pledge of allegiance from the people, not by him imposing, because according to Sunni Sunni ulama, Imam Ali did not appoint Imam Hassan as the Khalifa. He did not appoint him, yes, according to the Sunni scholars. The people chose him, yes. So they say, look, he was the most legitimate Khalifa after Imam Ali, because Imam Ali was the most legitimate Khalifa because the people chose him. Similarly, after Imam Ali, Al-Hassan was chosen. These were the only two out of the five who were chosen by the masses, yes. So even if there is a separation between Khilafah and Imama, they are enjoying the spiritual authority like the Ashabul Kisa. All the Sunnis believe that they are Ashabul Kisa, the people of the cloak. All the Sunnis believe they are the people of Mubahila. All of them believe. All the Sunnis believe they are the first tiers of AhlulBayt, the first tier of AhlulBayt. And they are spiritually and morally supreme, even though the wives of the Prophet are also a part of the AhlulBayt, the second tier. But these are the original ones, yes? Because they're the Ashabul Kisa and people of Mubahila and so on and so forth. In addition to all of the imama that he had, yes, the beauties of imama, he was elected as a Khalifa by the people without any coercion, and he was not appointed as a Khalifa. Can you see that? So his imama is a spiritual lord that he had anyway. We leave that to one side. But the Khilafah and the temporal rule was given to him by the people, whether it was his natural right and appointed by Allah or not, he was still given to him. So that's what they say, that look, he was one of the most legitimate Khalifas, Imam Hassan, and he was from the Khulafa Rashidin as well.
Okay. We have any more questions? Brother Ahmed?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Just to comment on the Khilafah issue, and just so the brother does not get confused. Basically, this is my comment, and you have every right to critique, inshallah. Well, basically, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did not refuse the Khilafah because he did not want it. It's because the time and era, it predestines, for him to deny that Khilafah. Because when we look at it, Khilafah by the Imams is not an end, it's a means to an end, and the end is justice. That's why Imam Ali alayhi salam says, إن هذه خلافتكم لا تسوى عندي عفرة عنز إلا أن أقيم حق وأدحض باطل. So it does not mean anything to me except that I establish justice. So as Shaykh Sadr says, in the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, there was a clash of thoughts from different schools of thoughts, from the Romans, the Indians, the Persians, whatnot, even the Greek as well. There was a clash of thoughts. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he thought his main goal was to nurture the right root in understanding the true Shia theology and philosophy and ethics. So therefore he refused the Khilafah, because if you were to get the Khilafah with Bani Abbas, they will betray him and he will not establish anything. So main thing about Imamah, their role was not to take Khilafah because of Khilafah, rather Khilafah to establish justice. And in the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he couldn't establish justice through Khilafah, rather through spreading the knowledge. Whereas nurturing that group from Imam to Imam, like from Imam Sadiq to Al-Qadhi al-Rida, to nurture that righteous group so they can be prepared for Al-Qa'im al Muhammad, and he can be the righteous Khalifa. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the valuable comment. We were only trying to understand, can Khilafah and Imamah be separated? That's the only thing we were trying to establish, that Imam Sadiq demonstrated that. Of course, thank you for giving us all the reasons for why he did that. But that demonstrates the point again that yes, Khilafah and Imamah can be separated. Thank you.
Brother Ali Raza?
Wait. If Imam Hassan's success was exposing Muawiya, how were the people of Sham still brainwashed into believing AhlulBayt were the rebels in Karbala's aftermath?
When the captives were taken from Karbala to Syria, there were several places in which the forces of Yazid feared reprisals. Do you know this? En route to Syria. And that's why you find these conflicting narrations that, the carriages were not there and they were sitting on saddleless animals. And then you find that they are in the carriage and then they are taken with their face masks, with their covering. And Zainab Salamullah alayhi's khutbah, that they saw her faces, and at one point their faces could not be seen, but from beneath the niqab, the blood spilled. That's because in several different towns, there were several different types of people receiving them. And in some places they felt that they feared rebellion. And whenever they felt rebellion, they offered that dignity to these people. So now when they went into into Damascus, in Syria, you find extensive conversations between Imam Zainul Abidin and the people of Syria, between Lady Zainab, Lady Kulthum and the people of Syria. There are many people who knew them from Medina. There were many Sahaba or the Tabi'in that were present there. So what happened was that finally the people of Syria and Damascus were beginning to awaken to the fact that they had been brainwashed. Yes? But until the killing of Imam Hussain, that wasn't the case. And the forces that met with Imam Hussain in Karbala, these were either people who did not know anything about Imam Hussain and so on and so on, or there were people who did know, but they thought of him as a bad person, or did know and they thought that he was a very good person, but that he is breaking a particular rule of defying a legitimately elected caliph or appointed khalifa. Or were people who were just too cowardly to fight on the right side. So these are the people. So Karbala should not be giving you the yardstick to gauge the people of Syria. The people in Karbala was a different mix who fought Imam Hussain.
So what success did the treaty have then?
So what the treaty did was, it actually, according to Bakr al-Sadr, Shaheed, it exposed on one hand Muawiya's face, because as soon as he did what he did in Kufa, this thing started in the minds of the people that Muawiya is not the person we thought he was. In the battle, when Ammar ibn As is killed, Ammar bin Yasir is killed, people see that we are the Fi'atul Baghiyah. We are the people who are wrong. Yes? So on and so forth. These were the events that were leading. Imam Hassan said, if I were to enter into battle, and if I were to be killed, the truth would never have been known. And then there would have been nobody to secure the rights of the righteous servants of God. Because now Imam Hassan reasoned this way. He said, look, if I was very weakened in his own army, he was very weakened. Had he gone to battle, he would have been killed and Hussein would have been killed. And after that, truth would not have been known, or the people would never have gotten at all any rights. So the treaties was offering this time and at least safeguard of a little bit of right. Two, according to Bakr al-Sadr, what he says was that the Romans, even though Muawiyah was keeping them at bay, the Romans were waiting for a bloody war to break out within the Muslim Caliphate, which would weaken them, and as a result, the Romans would go and capture Syria. So he speculates that Imam Hassan actually saw this as well, and he wanted to prevent that. So the peace treaty has a lot of other sort of related things that are taken into consideration in the mind of Imam Hassan.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? No? So we have.
You mentioned that Prophet Muhammad said that the model of prophethood would continue for 30 years, and that's how it went up to Imam Hassan. But then does that mean that Prophet was aware that three would be coming before Hazrat Ali, which he would be, but then was that following the model of the Prophet?
Now, the thing is that the prophetic insight, what it was, we don't know. But definitely the Prophet did say, bring me pen and paper and I'll write something for you, after which you will not be misguided. So the Prophet in his wisdom knew things. Yes? Now, not to say that Allah could not change it. Allah has the final say. And the absolute knowledge lies with Allah. Nobody has it, as the Quran says. Even the Prophet admits, humbly that I do not know the unseen, because even if I know, Allah can change it. But this is not the hadith from the Shia brothers, it's from the Sunni brothers. So, according to that, the Sunni brothers, they say, the Sunni ulama and scholars, that that model was one that was not a totally evil model, in the sense that it was khilafah. It was not a monarchy, a kingdom. So here, even if the Prophet's hadith is sound, what we can say is that it's not righteous model, but it's a khilafah based model, as opposed to kingdom.
But if you separate Khilafah and Imamah and you accepted that they're two different lines, then why did Hazrat Ali in Shakshakaya say that his rights were usurped? So he did not accept the Khilafah also, right?
So here there are different ways in which we argue. The first is that the appointment in Ghadir Khum, Man kuntu mawla fahada Ali mawla, so on and so forth, is this appointment. If this is appointment, then of course Ali ibn Abi Talib was appointed. Is this recommendation? In which case the Prophet has recommended. Was this Prophet taking the rights of his community? He says, Alastu, do I not enjoy a prior right upon you than you yourselves? They said, yes. They said, in that case, Ali is your Mawla. Did he go through a democratic process, which I believe he went through a democratic process to appoint Imam Ali? Because I don't feel anybody can be appointed by force. People have to give their rights. So people gave him the right and he appointed Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi. So no matter how we look at it, Imam Ali should have been the first Khalifa because of his great knowledge, service, piety, fairness. We all know this. He was the best candidate that could ever be. And the Muslims deserve the best candidates that could possibly be there. Yes?
But if Hazrat Ali accepted the caliphate also, then is it right when we read that Hazrat Ali was taken around in the streets with a string and he was like...
There is a lot of dispute in terms of the historical accounts as to what happened. Within the Ahlul Sunnah there are several narratives, within the Ahlul Shia there are several different views, yes? And this is a very messy part of Muslim history, through which we find a lot of hatred emerging and a lot of theology emerging. I certainly hope to God that the Muslim theologians on both sides will move away from their emotions and begin to examine the texts through certain yardsticks through which they can establish minimally what happened. I always feel that we need to say that this is what we know happened. Beyond that, we don't know if this happened or not. There it is, but we cannot verify it. So we do need scholars, historians who understand how to decipher information and come to us and give us a minimum position on the early history of Islam, because a lot of sectarian tendencies emerge from there.
Can we take an online question now?
Yeah.
Someone asked, if Imam Hassan alayhi salam was in such a weak position at the time of the treaty, why did Muawiya allow Imam Hassan alayhi salam to dictate the terms?
Muawiya was extremely shrewd. He was also mindful of how people see him. And therefore, in public, he always bestowed upon Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain. Publicly, he always bestowed upon them that these are the grandchildren of the Prophet. I am bestowing upon them. And he makes these shows on occasions in which he brings sacks of gold and whatnot for Imam al-Hassan to maintain that relation. Two, he would not at all want to risk a battle even though he outnumbered Imam Hassan, because in his mind, the information was that Imam Hassan has 40,000 men according to Sunni sources. Now 40,000 men is nothing less. And out of that are the people of Kufa and the Ansar of Medina. And these people were known to Muawiyah of how they fought in the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So yeah, you have these sort of renowned people. So obviously he was not a fool. He was a very shrewd and a clever man. It's like nowadays in warfare, right? Iraq was so insignificant. But when Britain and America went, they went with their full might. Iraq did not pose that threat, right? even though they might have had, which they didn't, the pretext was that they had weapons of mass destruction. I'm a very bitter critique of this war, yes, that Tony Blair took us in. It was very wrong, this war. Saddam was a monster, whatever he was, but this war and the pretext with which we fought this war was very wrong. Yes, it wasn't right. In any case, Tony Blair takes us to war, and he should be brought to answer for this million deaths that have occurred. He is no less than Muawiya. But when they went into Iraq, they went with their full might, yeah, in both the Gulf Wars. So this isn't how politicians work.
Do we have another question from the audience? Please.
Assalamu alaikum. The question is it bay'ah or is it treaty? Because most of the Shia think it was a treaty. Even some actually Shia scholars think it was a bay'ah, because to them handing over administration of the Ummah is as good as bay'ah. Can you please quote us any references
Yes,
from the Sunni brothers that the way they looked at this as treaty, not a bay'ah? Because they justify in support of Muawiya, saying, okay, even though Imam Ali fought him, but Imam Hassan accepted him. And that of course they try to bring in this misconception that Muawiya was okay. So if you could kindly...
Sure. To what I understand, yes. Shaheed Bakr Sadr has written in one of his books, and I can't remember which one, I read it many, many years ago, that the 12th Imam is the only one who does not have bay'ah in his neck. He is the only one out of the 12 Imams who does not have bay'ah. Every other Imam has some sort of bay'ah. So now, going by that, you see the Khulafa, Khalifa Abu Bakr, Khalifa Umar, Khalifa Uthman. Well, you know that people did not need to do their bay'ah. It was assumed that they had been chosen as a Khalifa, end of story, the bay'ah is a given. The bay'ah problem only started in the first one, right? Now, Muawiya was very, very shrewd. He already had Syria. And he was a very powerful man. With Imam Ali, it was only a temporary lull. There was a temporary patch of peace when Imam Ali was mobilizing his forces to go back to battle with Muawiya. Muawiya offered peace treaty. Yes? Not a bay'ah. Because he knew that Imam Hassan would not accept easily bay'ah and may not concede to that and would have problems to that. Problem of giving bay'ah. So that's why Amr ibn As suggested to make truce and to offer peace, truce, and he can dictate all the terms that he wants to. In return for what? In return for no war between the two and Muawiya being the Khalifa. Now, if that is interpreted as bay'ah, then they will interpret it as bay'ah. But if it's interpreted as peace treaty, they will interpret it as peace treaty. But in any case, that does not absolve Muawiya from being an unrighteous person. Yes? It does not absolve Muawiya at all. You see, Imam Rada Salamullah alayhi was approached by his naive followers. And they said, you are working with the Khalifa of the time. You are the crown prince. And this is letting us down. And it's an evil act. So he resorts to a polemical argument. Sorry, it's not a polemical. He resorts to a debate and argues it out in debate form. So he says, who is better, the Prophet or the Wasi? They said the Prophet. He said, who is better, a Muslim or a Kafir? They said a Muslim. They said, who is better, the one who willfully works with the despot or the one who is forced to work with the despot? They said, the one who is willfully working with the despot, with the tyrant. He said, Yusuf was a prophet, Pharaoh was a non-Muslim, and Yusuf willingly worked with him. If that is not a problem in the Quran, why should me working with the Khulafa of Ibn Abbas be a problem? So that does not absolve the Khulafa from being unrighteous. It just shows that there was no other choice that these great men had under the situation. So even if it's bay'ah or treaties or whatever you want to call it.
So as it's 9 p. Sorry, one last question.
Isn't it the role of Nawasib clarifies in this section? And I think Suruti also mentions that there is a difference between bay'ah and treaty. What was the role of Nawasib in the whole situation?
The Nasibi are those who curse Imam Ali and his family. Yes? And they were there in the time of Imam Ali, who fought with Imam Ali. But I don't know what their role was here. I assume they were with Muawiya at that point and not with Imam Ali. And not with Imam Hassan, sorry. The people who were with Imam Hassan were the Kharijis who wanted to fight against Muawiya. Yes? Now, what I'm saying is, I don't know how to interpret this, that there is a treaty. I'm dictating the terms of the treaty. In return, you can be the Khalifa and I will not fight against you, so long as you honor this. Yes? So you can legitimately say that that is not bay'ah, because bay'ah means unrestricted authority of the Khalif and you cannot rise against him. But Imam Hassan is clearly saying that if you break the terms of the treaties, then I'll have the right to rise against you. So is this bay'ah? It's disputable, so you're quite right. It might not be bay'ah by definition. It's the peace treaty, it's something else. Other than bay'ah and rebellion, it's a treaty. That's a third thing that we see emerging. It's interesting if people can study this and then give us a better understanding. But I certainly will go away being enlightened through this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone who came and stayed and took part in the discussion, and the SOAS team for organising this event. And to our dear Sheikh, who I'm sure we'll all agree gave us a lot of knowledge and insight into this treaty and the sources of how Karbala happened. So please have a good night.